welcome to I Learned About Flying from That. And I am Carl Valeri, your host today, and we have a really special episode in studio here in Lakeland, Florida. And we're going to talk a little bit about something that happened, an incident in an airplane that the pilot didn't realize happened until a little bit later, and actually almost over a year later. I'm joined by Elliot Mintzer. Elliot, welcome.
Well, thanks for having me, Carl. I'm excited to tell my story.
Yeah. Oh, and by the way, if you are looking to tell your story, email me at I Learned About Flying from That, ILAFFT @flyingmag.com. I'm really excited to learn from your incident in the airplane because it's a little bit different than the norm. Normally we talk about things that happen and right away we know they happen, but in your case, it's a little bit different. And in your case, there's something really interesting that happened. And a big shout out, by the way, to our sponsor, Avemco Insurance. This podcast would not be possible without Avemco. So, Elliot, let's first talk about you. Let's go back to what sparked your interest in aviation.
So, as a kid, my favorite TV show growing up was Wings. I enjoyed watching that show. The character Joe Hackett always just resonated with me. I thought it was super cool how he was flying a twin Cessna around Nantucket, and that's what he got to do. And I thought, how awesome would it be to be that guy?
And so you went ahead and got your licenses and became a commercial pilot. Did you go the traditional route of being a flight instructor?
So I did not flight instruct at all. I got my commercial, I got my instrument, and then I just started gaining hours. I was managing a Seneca. I was flying around for that company. And so that's really how I gained my hours. And then I got introduced to some other aircrafts, the King Air, the PC-12, which is my favorite.
PC-12, that is a cool airplane. We're going to talk a little bit about that, I think, here shortly. So lead us up into, now that you're working as a charter pilot, lead us into what actually happened this fateful day and how you really didn't realize it was something that would be a problem until later.
Exactly. And this is, I can smile about this story now that it's been a bunch of years, but so very young in my career, I was just getting started in the PC-12, and I wanted hours. I wanted to fly more. I wanted to learn more about the aircraft. Well, every flight that you take, you really should examine exactly who you're flying, why you're flying them, and where you're flying them to, and that all the paperwork is in order. This flight seemed legitimate all the way around. It came to me as a legitimate flight. It was Part 91. It was in a PC-12, and I was just getting started in my PC-12 career. I wanted to gain hours, and I was an independent PC-12 contract pilot. So I flew up to the Mid-Atlantic, picked up this individual, used their aircraft, flew the aircraft to Texas. And when I landed, the FAA was on the ramp waiting for me. And the questions were, who's in the back? Why are you flying them? And so forth. I had answers to all the questions. I left, went back to Florida. They left. Never heard another thing about it until one day when you open up your mailbox and there's a letter that says a flight conducted on this date in this aircraft with this tail number is being investigated by the FAA. It may have been conducted contrary to federal aviation regulations.
How did you feel after that?
Well, your stomach sinks. And the first is, what did I do? When did I do this? How did it happen? It was very disheartening because it's an investigation which could lead to revoking your flying privileges. So immediately, I contacted AOPA Legal. I had a professional plan with them. So they introduced me to a lawyer in Washington, D.C., Kathy Otis. And Kathy read the letter, and this started the multi-year process. Like, not just a few months. This was a multi-year process of looking at the evidence, examining the flight, getting all the paperwork. I had I had done nothing wrong. But the FAA didn't care about what I thought I did. They only care about what I did and did it fit within the regulation guidelines.
Wow. And we'll talk a little bit later as to what that actually was, that they were the charge, I guess you could say, that they had. So this was you were facing the possibility of a revocation of your pilot certificate.
Exactly.
That's scary.
It was a very scary thing, especially when your dream is to, be Joe Hackett from the TV show Wings and you want to be a charter pilot. This would have stopped that in the tracks.
Wow.
Yeah.
So when you were going through this, you were saying to yourself, did I do everything right? And one thing you did right was that you had AOPA and actually the legal plan there. And of course, all of us, we need to be protected. And that really makes us realize that we need to be protected in many ways. And that's also in insurance. And that's why our sponsor of Emco Insurance is so important to talk to, especially if you need aircraft insurance. So let's go take a quick break, and so we can talk to our sponsor there at Avemco. Not all aircraft insurance policies and premiums are the same. As the only direct writer in the market, Avemco never uses third-party insurance agents and instead connects you directly with an aviation underwriter in the Frederick, Maryland office who is ready to solve problems and approve coverage based on what you fly and how you fly it. Avemco provides lightning-fast quotes, competitive rates, and personalized policies that are easy to read and tailored for you. Call 1-800-338-8705 for your free quote or visit avemco.com/flying. And don't forget to tell them you're an iLaugh listener and save 5%. Now, back to I Learned About Flying From That. Well, folks, we're back, and we're here. Elliot is just after getting a letter from the FAA, and that letter is saying that he may have conducted this flight that was contrary to the regulations, right? And so now we start this investigation. You have the letter. You've contacted AOPA and their services and have an attorney. You're really feeling a little nervous now, aren't you? I mean, there must be all these crazy things going through your head.
Well, there's not only crazy things going through my head, but you get this letter and there's nothing attached to it.
Right.
There's no evidence. There's no, hey, this is what you did wrong. This is why we're investigating you. So we had to start the process. And so Yotis and Associates, Kathy, she retrieved the evidence of why this letter came to me. The reason the letter came to me was they were claiming that the primary fuel pump was out of date. It was overdue for overhaul. And I said, well, how do we fight this? We went to the company that provided the aircraft. We looked at all the logbook records. We had all this investigative work, and it took months. And so the claim was that because I flew this aircraft with an overdue part, the fuel pump, that was contrary to the federal regulations on flying an aircraft that's currently airworthy.
Wow. I'm thinking, how would you have known?
I wouldn't have known. It's not like, well, you have your arrow,
right?
You check your documents. There's nowhere on that document that you can check if the fuel pump is overdue.
Yeah,
so
who would pull out all the maintenance logs? You really do have to trust the person that you're flying for, don't you?
Exactly. There's no way to look at a maintenance tracking report and see that every item, is current and airworthy. You have to trust the director of maintenance that you're getting the aircraft from. And knowing that the aircraft was signed off and it had been inspected, why would this fuel pump, why would it be that way? Well, my bigger question was, how did the FAA even get involved in this?
Right.
Well, it turned out that the aircraft owner had some dispute, and they made one phone call. They tracked it on FlightAware. They made one phone call to the FAA hotline. Just happened to be on the day that I flew it from the Mid-Atlantic to Texas. And under federal regulation, the minute someone makes a complaint through the 1-800 hotline, they're required to start an investigation.
So they start this investigation. You get this letter. What did your attorney say about you continuing your flying career?
Well, until they actually revoke your privileges, my privileges were in act. So I could still fly. So I kept doing my charter work. I kept flying privately. I kept flying for other owners until there was actually, the promotion of what they wanted to do, which they wanted to suspend my license for a minimum of 6 months due to flying this aircraft with an out of date fuel pump.
But you actually didn't have that suspension yet.
No, it was only. That's right.
You could actually continue flying. But do you think the fact that this was happening affected your flying at all?
I tried not to let it.
Yeah.
I tried not to look at every flight as, hey, this could be your last. Luckily, Kathy was so skilled and kept me calm and composed that, hey, we will get through this. We just need to look at all the evidence and, take it one day at a time. But don't let it impact what you're doing now because there's, again, it's only a proposed action. It's not enforced. There's always an appeal process. So I used that information to keep going and keep doing the right things.
Wow. So then you went through this process. And again, this is over not just a few months. This is over a year.
This is over the course of 2 years.
2 full years. And this is going on. How much did that wind up costing you, if you don't mind that? Yeah.
Well, it was tens of thousands of dollars.
Wow.
Yeah. And the thing about, anytime you are involved with something that has to do with the FAA, their legal team is much larger than yours. They have unlimited resources.
Wow. But it did turn out okay.
Tell
us what the result was.
Well, I tell people that the most important flight of my life was not in a charter airplane. It was in a commercial airplane to Washington, D.C., where Kathy and I met with the lead FAA inspectors and attorneys. So I went to FAA headquarters in Washington. I sat in a conference room with the attorneys and inspectors on one side and me and Kathy on the other. And through her expertise and strategic positioning and presenting the evidence factually, we were able to clear me of any wrongdoing. Everything was stricken from my record, and I lived to fly another day.
Wow. And we're glad you did all this and you went to the proper sources, but you must have had a big celebration when that happened.
There was a sigh of relief. There was a sigh of relief, but it didn't make me fearful of flying or the FAA. It made me understand that I need to examine every flight in a Part 91 environment that much closer. You need to make sure that you know who's in the airplane. How is compensation taking place? Do you have the right documentation if there is a lease? You need to make sure that if you can, check your airworthiness, check the maintenance tracking report, just to make sure that everything is current and not overdue.
What other takeaways do you have, and what did you learn about flying from that other than what you had just mentioned?
Well, you have to fly like you're an attorney. You really do. In everything that you do today, you have to, when you're in that seat, when you get a read back, you make sure that you read it back. You make sure it's on the tape. When you fly your aircraft, before you leave the ground, make sure you check everything. Make sure you do a proper pre-flight. Make sure you take the time to do what's right before you depart.
And don't let anybody push you. It's not that I was pushing you here, but that is something that I think is really important, is that flying just like the FAA is in the jump seat.
Well, exactly. And my passion almost got me grounded.
Yeah.
Did I know to ask the right question? I didn't. But now anytime I fly a Part 91 turbine aircraft, a PC-12 for any private owner, I make sure that I get a copy of the maintenance tracking report, which is computerized, which will show me in the first 3 pages if any items are overdue. And that way you know that you're flying an airworthy airplane.
Wow. That's worth the takeaway right there, Elliot. That has been terrific, you sharing your story. So what's next? You're going to keep on flying?
Well, I'm going to keep on flying more privately now than for charter. With over 6,000 hours in the PC-12, I've got that patch. And so what I want to do is I want to teach others that they can be in the airplane as well, and they can do what they want and have those experiences and, really enjoy it.
Well, I'm glad you are. And I know you're also in the midst of writing a book. So it's going to be exciting to hear that come out in the future. But we're really happy that you came here today. And we thank you for sharing your story and what you learned about flying from that story. Because, a lot of times these incidents aren't necessarily happening in the airplane. They happen before the airplane gets out on the ramp, and you may not find out about them until months, and it might take years to get your certificate back or to stop the process from them taking your certificate.
Absolutely.
Elliot, I really appreciate your coming here. I learned about flying from that. I'm Carl Valeri, your host, and don't forget to check out Eventco Insurance, our sponsor. And if you have a story just like Elliot you want to share it with us by email, ilafft@flyingmag.com. My name is Carl Valeri. Safe flying out there. And don't forget to listen to all of our past episodes, and we'll have some really exciting ones coming up at I Learned About Flying From That. Safe flying out there.